प्रारंभ प्रार्थना। दक्षिणास्य समारंभा शंकराचार्य मध्यमा अस्मदाचार्य पर्यंता स्मर्या गुरु परंपरा श्रुति स्मृति पुराणानाम आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शंकरं लोकशंकरं शंकरं शंकराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वंदे भगवन्तो पुनः पुनः। ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्ति भेद विभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। परिज्ञानाश्रम श्री गुरु शंकर परिज्ञानाश्रम शंकर सद्गुरु केशव वामन कृष्ण पांडुरंग आनंद परिज्ञान गुरु सद्यो जात शंकर सद्गुरु गुरु ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वर गुरु साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। ओम सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ओम शांति शांति शांति।
Jai Shankar, and welcome everyone to this 12th edition of Mulaqat series. On behalf of Canara Saraswat Association, I am Mahesh Kalyanpur, Chairman of KSA. Heartily welcome everyone for this session. Canara Saraswat Association has been the premier institution of the Chitrapur Saraswat community, and KSA, as it is known, has been having various activities throughout the year for the benefit of the Chitrapur Saraswats and everyone in general. KSA CSN is an activity which was started by KSA few years back, and one of the activity under KSA CSN is this Mulaqat series. Today we are fortunate to have Hemant Mallapur ma'am, who is a co-founder of the India's first semiconductor chip company, Saankhya Labs. It would be interesting to listen to this conversation and his experience, because I think he started his company much before India's Startup India initiative and all these initiatives had come into place. So he must have gone through a lot of issues while starting the company. So it will be interesting to know how he had overcome all these problems in his initial journey. So without taking much time, I would now request Rajiv Kalyanpur ma'am to introduce to everyone KSA CSN activities. Rajiv ma'am.
Thanks a lot, Mahesh ma'am. Mahesh ma'am म्हणाली KSA CSN initiative was taken up by KSA roughly around 4 years back. Swamangel Ashirwadane आणि Swamangel direction आणि Swamangel inspiration आणि KSA CSN activity आम्ही सुरू केलेला. CSN is an acronym for Chitrapur Saraswat Network. आणि आमगेल main motive at CSN is to help all Bhanaps do better in whatever they are doing. That covers both entrepreneurship and jobs, but our primary focus is on entrepreneurship. It is generally, it is a long-standing belief that we Amchis are not cut out for business, which is actually not true, because I keep meeting so many kind of entrepreneurs in so many kind of fields. It's astonishing, really, but we don't know about them because we are far too reticent, and we have not created a platform where people can talk about their work. Of course, you don't talk business. We never talk work. So we need to bring about a cultural change where we all start sharing information about what we are doing, because that helps others in an invisible way. And typical to me business communities padhelari Marwadis, Sindhis, and tanka, because most of them are business. At a crucial time, the entrepreneur gets maybe a small bit of advice or a small connection, which completely opens up all the doors and makes things so much easier. But we Amchis, we all struggle on our own and we make it on our own, which is a good thing, but we could do a lot better by, networking. And that is the aim of Chitrapur Saraswat Network, to provide a platform which provides a structured way for all Amchis to interact with each other on the entrepreneurship front. And also, we need to bring about a cultural change where more and more Amchis, youngsters and also the not so young, feel more confident about going into entrepreneurship. And one of the ways to do that is to highlight the stories of high achievers. And this is why we started the Mulaqat series. And today's is the 12th of these. Each one of them has been educative and inspirational, and certainly today's will definitely be that. We are all looking forward to that. So other than that, we also hold regularly knowledge sharing workshops where we invite domain experts to come and share their expertise in their respective domains. And that these workshops are open to all. And through that also we try to disseminate knowledge and help, would-be entrepreneurs, or maybe not even entrepreneurs, society at large, to gain some knowledge. Asl mast zalanti, and they have all been very, very useful. And I thank all those people who conducted those interviews. Now, another thing, we as a community should try and support Amchi businesses, both on a B2B basis and a C2B basis. Mari business to business today, we have to try and support, and consumer to business also we have to try and support. But to do that, in the first place, there should be awareness about who's doing what. Why not? So that's why we also created a website where we have invited all Amchi entrepreneurs to go and list their businesses. It allows them to give a lot of information about their businesses. And the website address is www.canarasaraswat.com/CSN. And again, through this medium, through this broadcast, I appeal to all Amchi entrepreneurs to list themselves there. And I also appeal to all those who are not entrepreneurs but know some entrepreneur, encourage that person to go and list the business on this website. So a website is a good thing to start with, but Yulkishore Masarkar Maman pointed out that we need to use the power of WhatsApp, because that is one medium that everyone uses these days. And Takatara, the Bhanap Yellow Pages was launched again with Swamiji's blessings in the month of December. So the Yellow Pages on to whoever is listed in the website, on the website, immediately comes into the Yellow Pages. So the Yellow Pages on to, there is a field for entering a search term. You could put in anything there. Investment consultancy, Rajesh Mam's name will come up. Any export guidance, Gopinath's name will come up. You can put in any kind of search term and you'll get the names of all the Amchis who offer services in that area. So I would appeal to every Amchi to first look for an Amchi goods or service provider for something that they need, and give their business to an Amchi service provider or goods provider, provided everything else is equal. We are not asking for favors, but if the price and the quality, the service levels, everything is equal, then prefer an Amchi, because that's how we will help each other grow. Other than that, existing entrepreneurs regularly interaction meets the Vartati. This happens twice a month lately, and that is very passionately driven by my colleague on the task force. Unfortunately, he couldn't be here today, Gautam Amladi Mamo. And Rajesh is an active supporter of that. We have a very vibrant task force which takes up all these initiatives and puts in all the hard work needed to execute that. So TAM meetings unto all the attendees introduce themselves, get to know each other, and it helps them to develop a more intimate knowledge about each other, which gives them the confidence to start dealing with each other at a professional level. Nemekal जाताची की भीड असताना अरे तक काम दिलं तनकणी दखल करचे मागीर वाईटपण येता ताजे बदलाक नाक कर these are the thoughts that typically prevent Banavs from giving business to other Banavs. That can be overcome by first building up a personal rapport and then entering into a professional relationship. There's also more like 1:1 and all that, but the entrepreneur will get to know about these kind of meetings once they list on the website. Once they list on the website, they are added to a Telegram interaction group. After that, they are invited to join these interaction meets. So there is more to come. We have formed mentor groups with very experienced professionals in each field of expertise, and very soon we will be launching that service for all entrepreneurs, but that's a little into the future. I think enough time introducing KSA CSN. If I would invite all of you to visit the website, because that's where you'll know more about what we are doing. Ani, to repeat, please encourage all Amchi entrepreneurs to list themselves on the website so that more and more we get to know who's doing what. So thanks, and I now request Rajesh Hattangdi Mam to introduce the chief guest for the evening. Over to you, Rajesh.
Namaskar, Jai Shankar. Hemant Mallapur is a co-founder and executive vice president of engineering at Saankhya Labs, a wireless technology company based in Bangalore since 2007. He brings in immense experience of over 30 years as an entrepreneur and managing semiconductor and electronic system product development. Till date, he obtained his BTech degree in Electronics and Communication Engineering from College of Engineering, JNTU, Hyderabad in 1992. Till date, he holds a total of 5 path-breaking international patents in the field of telecommunications. In the first 14 years of his career, he has worked in several semiconductor MNCs in their India development centers, namely Genesis Microchip, Sage, Synopsys, and CG Core L. In the year 2000, Hemant featured in EDN, Electronics Design News, Asia Magazine in the Innovator of the Year category. In the year 2007, he co-founded Saankhya Labs with a vision of building one of India's first product companies in the field of wireless semiconductor chipsets and 5G telecom equipments. Over the last 15 years, Saankhya Labs has won many national as well as international awards, which include Economic Times, the Champions of Rural Market Award 2019, Financial Times, High Growth Companies 2020, CII Industrial Innovation Award 2021. Saankhya Labs has been in the news recently for its merger with the Tata Group company Tejas Networks. Hemant lives in Bangalore with his wife Jasmina Nee Podukon and daughter Dia. Hemant has been an avid sportsman with participation in inter-corporate badminton as well as cricket. His other interests vary from trekking, listening to Hindustani music, Marathi literature, and has interest in Sanskrit. Add to this, he keenly pursues his personal dharmic sadhana too. Namaskar, Hemant. Today, Hemant will be interviewed by Rajiv Kalyanpur, a second-generation entrepreneur who joined the family business founded by his eldest uncle, Shri Raghuveer Kalyanpur. They are into manufacturing of soaps, detergents, and specialty chemicals. Namaskar, and over to you, Rajiv.
So thanks a lot, Rajesh, for the very nice comprehensive introduction of Hemant Ma'am. Hemant, can you tell us a little bit about semiconductors? Because most of us are a little hazy on that. We know it is important, but not quite why. So can you tell us what they do? Why are they important? How they are produced? Can we start with that?
Yeah, Jai Shankar. Firstly, thank you, Rajiv Ma'am and KSA CSN platform for giving this opportunity. So Semiconductors basically is in common parlance we call it chips or integrated circuits or ICs. So these are basically components that go into all electronic systems today, which are ubiquitous. I mean, everything from your laptop to phones, your set-top boxes, televisions, name it. Any electronic item has chips inside them, and the technical name is basically semiconductor. So as you can imagine, all electronic systems require semiconductor chipsets. So today, of course, the criticality of it has come post some of the supply chain issues. You hear about news that there are automotive majors who are ready with the rest of their car built, but waiting for electronic chip supply to come in. Because of that, they are not able to ship their cars or other autos, all kinds of locomotives. So basically, this is happened partly because of the COVID shocks on supply chain, and some amount of it got also compounded by speculative buying by consumers of these chipsets. So to come to your question, basically the importance of semiconductors is that it is that invisible hardware that we take for granted, and it drives all your systems today. So it's a very large global industry. Of course, in India it is a very fledgling, nascent kind of an industry. Large part of the market share is owned by the names of some of them are well known, like Intel, Qualcomm, Samsung also is, but increasingly now you see companies like Apple, even Amazon, Facebook are getting into semiconductors, since that is the underlying hardware, and they see a lot of value in making chipsets more powerful and customized for their requirements. So by and large, that's really the fundamental sort of block that drives our digital world today. That's the semiconductors.
That's interesting, and that tells us why this interview is all the more important. Hemant, it would be interesting to know about your formative years, and also, as part of that, to know whether there were any influences you can pinpoint which might have contributed to your taking the entrepreneurial plunge later on in life. Can you tell us?
Yeah. So formative years, I grew up for 10 years. First 10 years in Bombay. I was in Balmohan, where I remember, I think around 4th standard, I had a teacher, Nana Parab sir, who basically, for the first time, I became aware that there is this notion of buying things which are made, in India. He really sort of, that's something I remember even today. So he said, whether you're buying a toothpaste or a TV or whatever, always if things are good, you should buy Indian produced one. So that was sort of a first realization that there is something, buying a product is not just, you just go and take whatever, it is good to think about what is happening behind it. So that was probably one thing which kind of germinated in me, always that buying Indian or even creating Indian products is an important sort of some goal to aspire for. Later on, I think, when I graduated from electronics and communication engineering, of course, I had this choice, which was very common that time, that, you go after graduation, you go to US for a higher studies, and then, use that as a sort of a gateway for emigration. So to US. And I was fortunate that in my family, my parents had the wisdom and to basically advise me that all of that, what you are aspiring for, what you're planning to, why are you going to US? All of those things are possible very much in India. And of course, at that time, it looked very fantastic. I think I almost laughed at their suggestion that you could, create high technology in India. The situation at that time was not as rosy as now it is. But and of course, it was not sort of, they just instructed me. I mean, we had this way that, we would discuss everything. And finally, I saw their point. And basically, I decided not to, pursue this US thing. And my mother told me that, you can actually build things here, high technology here. You can make the sort of Americans, so to say, come here for technology. I think that somewhere left a very important impression on me. And today is actually incidentally Father's Day, so very nice for me to remember my father as well as my mother, who had that wisdom at that time. And so after that, it was actually a very I would say it was a cusp in 1992 when I passed out, because just the year prior, our liberalization had happened and all the PSUs had sort of frozen the hiring. And it was difficult to get a job, even though I was from a number two kind of college in Andhra Pradesh. It was a government college. Getting a job was not really, shouldn't have been difficult, but that year it was very difficult. So I happened to meet my grand uncle, I would say, my Bappa, mother's Bappa actually, Durgesh Nagarkatti. He was a very accomplished, he was a professional, successful professional general manager of Crompton Greaves in Kanjurmarg. And he basically, I had a very good sort of a brainstorming with him, where I was telling him, this is what I enjoy, this is what I want to work on. And problem solving is really what excites me. So as an engineer, you are trained to work on that. And he has said that, we have one new sort of startup coming up in Pune, which is getting into this new exciting area called semiconductors, right? So, and I was fortunate that that was only, I think, one of two companies in semiconductors. That was just the nascent stage in India. So I had the good fortune of joining it. It was more like a startup, learned everything from scratch. And so those were the things which sort of, I would say, introduced me to this path of semiconductors. Another person who had an influence on me, I think, was when I graduated. Of course, I used to interact a lot with him. His name is Mr. Ravindranath Padukone, who was a good family friend of ours in Hyderabad. And we used to, I used to visit him because he had a lot of good electronics books, he himself being an electronics engineer. And, when I graduated, one of the things that he suggested is, why don't you try entrepreneurship in electronics? So there were some ideas and all that, but at that time, I felt that, I didn't have the right experience to start such a journey. But it was always, there in my mind. So somewhere over the decades when I, worked on in the semiconductors, this was always there at the back of my mind. And when the right conditions happened, then it sort of germinated. So basically, entrepreneurship and semiconductors and made in India, these were sort of the three, I would say, conversions of these three influences in my formative years, I would say.
Nice. That was very interesting. So can you then tell us about your journey just before you founded Saankhya? I think you mentioned a little bit of that, and maybe you might want to tell us more. And also about the founding of Saankhya itself. I presume the earlier part of your working career also shaped, the entrepreneurial plunge later. So it would be interesting to know a little more about that.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, I joined, one of India's first semiconductor startups, CG Corel in Pune. And there I learned all the, the nitty-gritties, the basics, the sort of what you call the elbow grease of the semiconductor world, grappling with boards, electronic boards, instruments, debugging problems, and all of that. And later I, sort of switched jobs to a Bangalore company called Synopsys, where all chip design software is really their product. So that's called EDA tools, electronic design automation tools. And there I gained experience on these advanced methodologies for which go into developing a chip. But there, of course, always there was this restlessness that, we are not actually doing the chips, we are not developing the chips, we are helping test these tools which go. So my next job was in a startup again called Sage Design Systems. In US, it was called Sage Inc., and we were the sort of India center. And here, actually, I developed firsthand. I took charge of developing chips. I managed development of about 4 to 5 chips there, which were basically in the field of LCD electronics. So LCD was new at that time. LCD monitors for PCs, etc., was just coming up, and our chip in Sage used to power that. So and I think it was really I should mention here that it was thanks to the founders of that company, Mr. Chandra Reddy and Pratap Reddy, who had the, I would say, the vision to develop all the semiconductor, the chip engineering in India. Because I think they were one of the first who came to India, and I was fortunate to be, part of that group. And where basically we handled everything end to end. We developed the chip right from specifications, product specifications, the architecture, design. These are all the different phases, and even the implementation, realization into an actual physical chip, testing it and taking it to customer. So I had a all-round end-to-end experience in that company. And that trend later caught on, and in fact after that you could see that in US a business would not get funded, a startup would not get funded in the semiconductor area unless you had an India development center. So India really became a powerhouse of talent for semiconductors. So it was all of the companies which developed products which with US company brand name had major presence in India. And basically, when we were in that, then the chip, that company Sage got bought over by Genesis Microchip, and we developed one of world's first high definition TV chipsets there. And it was being marketed to a customer in Singapore, where incidentally some of the people were Indians, and they happened to know once they visited us. They were saying that we know that this chip is being developed in India, but finally that doesn't get mentioned when you actually, the sales guy comes to your to the customer. He says this is an American developed chip. So that kind of made me realize that while all of the engineering is happening here, India will not get that credit, and credit is only one part of it. Of course, all of the profits or the the revenues that come out of it, they are not attributed to India. So somewhere there, that kind of motivated, and by that around that time, my company had acquired a startup called Smart Yantra, and the founders of Smart Yantra, who later became my co-founders at Saankhya Labs, they, I met them as part of this acquisition, and we got along very well. We used to kind of brainstorm a lot, the post-lunch walks we used to have, and some of these ideas which were germinating, we said, why shouldn't we have why isn't there an Indian product company in semiconductors? And at the right time, we decided to take the plunge. One fine day we decided, yes, this is something we have to do. We have, will be probably the first one. A lot of people laughed at it, well, not exactly laughed, in a derisive way, but saying that this is who has made sort of started as Indian semiconductor company. But like someone asked, why do you want to start a semiconductor company from India, a product company? Actually, I didn't have an answer except saying that because we can, right? I think somewhere, I think it reminded me of that. Why do people climb Mount Everest or Himalayas or mountains? There is no reason. It's because one day you are going to go up and then coming down back home, right? So what is the point? And the answer was very, I think, meaningful, because we can, right? So you climb mountains because you can climb them. So I think somewhere that was really driving us. So that actually led us to starting Saankhya Labs. So that was our motivation.
Right, and I would think that there was also a nationalistic feeling behind it. I think you wanted to also build brand India, like you mentioned. India was not getting the credit for all the work that was being touted as USA made and things like that. That's really creditable. So how difficult was it for you all to get the funding, and how did you all manage the finance for all this? I'm sure it wasn't a very easy task. How did you all do that?
Yeah, it wasn't easy. In fact, semiconductors, generally hardware business, I mean, the world has sort of recognized that it's tough business. I mean, even no less a person than Sundar Pichai, CEO of Google, has said that hardware is hard, and we were fortunate. I'll admit that, we have been exceedingly fortunate in raising capital. Because semiconductor business is is extremely capital intensive. We had to raise, even with very, very frugal salaries. People who joined us initially just worked at a fraction of the salary they were getting in multinationals, with the sheer aim of just they saw this vision. Yes, we have to build this company from India. And our first investors, of course, were founders. We put in our own money, but then that is not enough, because semiconductors takes a lot of investment. And our first supporter, our first investor, angel investor, was Dr. Mohan Shetty, who was himself an accomplished semiconductor veteran. And he had, of course, a very interesting sort of method where he actually started about 4 or 5 semiconductor services organizations based in Manipal. And he was himself a highly respected individual in Texas Instruments, which he started the India Center, so to say. So he was the first guy who wrote a big check for us. And he said that not just that, he gave us, he said, I'll give you engineers. He had a good channel of recruiting engineers from engineering colleges, and he said that the next time I recruit, I'll give you those people. So he was very, very supportive. He's unfortunately no more, but he created many companies, right? I think that support was very very key for us at that stage, because he was an angel investor. He was not like, show me your business plan, show me what is the return on investment. He said, yes, I want this sort of a company to be built from India, and I will support you in all ways that I can. And he literally did that. So raising investment, once he came in, my co-founder's previous company, I should mention my co-founders Parag Naik, who is the CEO, and Vishwa Kayargade, who is the Chief Operating Officer in Saankhya now. They had a previous company called Smart Yantra, and their investors had got a good exit when their company got acquired. So they were all, obviously they had good reasons to trust with more investment, and they also pitched in. And together with them, they brought in a lot of other investors who were actually not at all in any way linked with technology of any kind. Right? They were, they would have sort of businesses in APMC and yards and agricultural in North Karnataka, and they all just put in money based on trust, right? The friends, family type of thing. And we actually were quite lucky that we got all of these investors to fund us to our first chip. So our first semiconductor chip, it took us about 3.5 years to develop, and it was all funded by angel investors. We demonstrated our first chip at Consumer Electronics Show in US in Las Vegas. I think it was 2010. And just before that, we won an award. So all of that was possible, with this capital that we raised initially from angels. We, to talk about further how we manage our investments, we got at the CES. In fact, we were fortunate to get Intel Capital as a strategic investor, and they had some alignment on the display side of things. So TV was a target market for them at that time, and they invested based on the fact that we brought out this actual chip in such a frugal capital. And then later we were again fortunate that we got General Motors Ventures, GM Ventures, as an investor. Subsequently, around 2016, we had investment from Sinclair Broadcast Group. So throughout our investors have been strategic investors, because this is a very this is not the flavor of the season for the venture capitalists. They go after where you have a very well measured ROI, return on investment, and they have a short horizon investment. They invest as a herd for justified reasons. But for us, we always had strategic investors as our providers of capital. So that was our sort of capital or investment raising kind of story.
So you did mention that many of your early, colleagues joined at a fraction of the salaries that they were getting, and obviously they already had bought into the vision, common vision.
Yes.
But did you all have to do anything? Did you all do anything in particular to build a team culture later on as your organization grew? Did you all have any specific programs and schemes, or was the vision in itself powerful enough to ensure that the culture percolates throughout the organization?
I think vision was one part, but the other part was also the chemistry, because all our core team had worked with each other. The top 15, 20 people had worked with each other for between 5 to 10 years already, and the chemistry was the bonding factor for us. We were fortunate. It's actually most of the startups, what we hear is that most of the startups fail because the initial team doesn't conquer, right? They don't see the same point of view, and there are a lot of differences of opinion, or there is a loss of faith in the vision. But we were, I must say, we had an excellent and well-rounded team, right? In terms of technical abilities, whether it was hardware, software, chip design, because all of these are required. So in terms of skills, it was extremely complementary, and we built everything from scratch. The technology was built from scratch. So that definitely, and we were not solving a problem that someone has solved before, or it was not a Me Too product. It was basically an architecture, what we call software-defined radio. It was highly programmable, and to some extent, that I would say ingenuity of the architecture that kind of helped us sustain the company for a long time. So even though one market didn't pan out as expected, we were able to steer it towards another, as they call it now. They call it pivot in the startup lingo. So we did many pivots, but all through our teams, team stayed together. In fact, in a startup, I think, of course, people who newly enter a startup world, they think that, okay, we'll work for 6 months, we'll have a we'll become a unicorn in 6 months. There are these dreams, and there are a lot of unrealistic expectations, but nobody probably tells them that it is the success rate is very low, right? You have to stay on the course. Fortunately for me, right, I think all my co-founders had the startup experience, so they told me right in the beginning, don't come into this for seeing something miraculous in terms of you become a billionaire or something like that. Come into this saying that whatever I'm putting into this company, even if I lose it, I should not feel bad, because the experience of it, building a company, doing something like this itself should be your reward. If you don't come into that company with that, you'll always be focused on, okay, what is going to come out of this, and then the fun stops. So that was never the issue for all of us. And of course, it is an open communication. A startup always has this purpose-driven kind of a culture, which we also had. And whenever something worked out or something didn't work out, we all sort of collectively decided and sort of took corrective action. So those were the things which helped us.
You've shared some very valuable lessons and insights that would be very useful to anyone who's going to venture into entrepreneurship. Thanks for that. What has been the high point of your journey so far? I mean, maybe some products that you created which made waves in the market, or some awards, or what would you share with us? What is the best thing that has happened in all these years?
See, the most memorable thing, whatever we say, the first chip of ours, when it worked, I think I still have, today I was looking for what might be interesting pictures, etc. That video I located, and that joy which was there in that video, that our first chip worked, and it showed picture on the screen. Because what happens is actually a chip. What is peculiar in the chip world and generally in hardware world is that because the cost of manufacturing is so high, there is a very steep price to pay for when you release your chip database for manufacturing. Even if there is a single transistor or a wire which is missing or connected the wrong way, your chip has a potential of not being able to work, right? And then to fix it is both expensive in time and money. So basically there was always this they say that only the paranoid survive in the semiconductor industry. We go through all kinds of testing and worst case scenarios, reviewing, re-reviewing, even the smallest of things. And when that works, right, that joy was I think unparalleled. I think that was definitely our first moment. And then immediately following that, we won an international award right after we announced that chip, which was IMS Research. It was a US-based research company, market research company, which where we won in the semiconductors category alongside Dolby's and Panasonics of the world. So that was definitely very satisfying. I think our getting funded by Intel, that was definitely a high point. And then for the 15 years, it's been a 15-year journey. So, there have been many high points where, our products worked. We developed a product for satellite communication, which is installed in Indian Railways. It is tracking 3,000 locomotives in real time, reporting the location, which is easy for the tracking of locomotives. So the same chip has gone into this. The chip has gone into products we built for Indian Defense called Tactical Radio in partnership with a company called Cyient. They actually licensed our technology. They were like that was our first revenue from licensing our technology, and that was really in fact at that time we were kind of coming out of a very bad patch. So that definitely was our a memorable moment for us. Then I think most recently, So we have developed rural broadband products and some we are into now 5G telecom products. All of these are very sort of exciting things for us.
Okay, you did mention a bad patch, and as most entrepreneurs would agree, it's almost inevitable that there will be a bad patch in the journey at some point. So what was the worst phase of your journey? Did you ever feel, or did you ever regret that you took the plunge, or did you ever feel maybe this is not what I should have done? Did you have any regrets at any point of time, or did you have a bad phase?
We definitely had bad phases. I mean, in a startup, that is definitely there always. It takes a lot of hard work and not just product development. You have to sell your product, which is even more difficult than building a product. And when you don't succeed, your markets don't pan out. Those are low points. But I think our lowest point was where we only raised partial funding for one of our chip development products. So we ramped up the team in a big way. We couldn't raise the full funding and had to cancel that project. So at that time there was, it was a bad phase. There was certain downsize the team, but we made sure that people who had to be let go, they had jobs in the other companies. So we personally spent our own time making sure that everyone was placed. So that was definitely one of the low points because it's extremely painful to go through something like that, downsides, right? After talking about the vision and you truly believe, but then things don't pan out. So that was there. Another part time was when we had actually a term sheet from an investor, and basically we were at that time developing a product for a rural broadband, rural internet connectivity, and relying on this term sheet, we said, okay, looks like money is coming, so we can continue at the same pace instead of pausing a bit because we were kind of at the brim of our we're at the scraping the bottom of our money pool. So we continue to invest, and but then that due to some Europe crisis or something, that didn't show up. The money didn't show up. So we ran into significant amount of liabilities, and but really a great credit to our team who both times supported us, and not a single person in the in our team has left us at that time. And very soon after that, we had good a licensing deal, which kind of helped us pull back in. And in fact, in a way, that bad point actually sort of helped us because we bought out our investors, venture capital investors, which meant that some of the ownership of the company, which had sort of dipped because of a lot of investments, we could kind of elevate it back and share a lot more with our employees. So in a way, it was good, and it taught us that you really need to stay cash positive. And we basically tuned our mode of conducting business by partnering with bigger companies who wanted to build products, but they needed the technical expertise from us, and we owned the IP. In most of these deals, we learned that if you keep the IP, we didn't want to become an out-and-out services company. So always we made sure that there is a partnership and we own the intellectual property that comes out of that development. So it helped us in a way. The low points taught us what needs to happen in a business, and that we pulled ourselves out of that and survived.
Right. That holds an important lesson, I think, for all existing and also would-be entrepreneurs. There are going to be bad times, but if the fundamentals are strong, perseverance is a very important quality. You need to ride out the bad times, and then you're again bound to see good times again, in most cases at least. So Now I wonder, you mentioned that Ravi Padukun had advised you or asked you whether you would want to be an entrepreneur just as you were out of college. And then you did turn an entrepreneur around 15 or 16 years after that. So do you wish that you had taken up entrepreneurship earlier, or do you feel that it was a good thing you waited?
Yeah, I think
would be youngsters to do?
Yeah, actually, it varies from industry to industry. In semiconductors, there is a certain amount of sort of know-how that you only get in the industry. It is not something that you can learn from textbooks. You have to write up software and then kind of learn on your own. It's not like computer science. So in our particular industry, I think it was very important for me to that experience before I plunged into entrepreneurship. So I think that was the right thing. But that's not in general true. I mean, in today's world, if you talk about artificial intelligence or some of the business model apps, which fresh out of college or students who have not even probably completed their college, they can develop, because computer science has its sort of ease of realizing what you're thinking. You can just take a laptop or a computer and develop what you are envisaging, and all of that results are there for you to see. Semiconductors, on the other hand, it was not like that. Hardware business also is a bit tough. So in my case, it was appropriate for me to get that expertise and only then start entrepreneurship. But that doesn't apply to everyone.
Right. Yeah. Case to case. Very true. So what prompted your decision, you meaning you all as a team, to give shareholding to Tejas Networks, the Tata Group company? Was this something that was always on the anvil, or did it come about in an evolutionary manner? What was the thought process?
Well, with specifically this Tejas Networks Tata Group, that obviously emerged only with during the discussions. But what happens is, see, basically, unlike traditional businesses, today when we talk about startups, one of the things that founders and all the employees, they should be, or they usually are already tuned to the expectation that one day I'm going to exit this business. It's not like I'm going to run this for generations and generations. It is something that there is a certain value that you bring, which you develop, and most of the companies, let me say 99% of the companies will look for an exit, or they should be looking for an exit when their value is the right level. Of course, if you are in that remaining 1% where actually you reach the market, you carry out an IPO, go public, and and continue to run your company, raise capital from primary market. That's it's if you have very good, sustainable, scalable business model, then that becomes possible. So such businesses can think of carrying on and staying independent. But mostly all startups founders at one point or the other should be and are usually looking forward to some sort of an exit, some sort of an acquisition where they get a decent price valuation for their company. So we were not averse to that. So the only thing was that you should get a decent valuation. Of course, one always thinks sometimes that maybe I could have got higher if I'd waited. Those are all things there, but generally that's a decision one has to kind of make as a founder, which is the right time. So to answer your question, it was not always specific to this. We had never thought that an Indian company would kind of get interested in semiconductors, because normally the field of play is always focused on Silicon Valley, and something like that would have been more usual. So in that sense, it was not entirely as per plan, but it was really, given our vision of developing an Indian product and an Indian product company. So this actually was very much in line with that, which helped us make the decision.
So would you say that in choosing Tejas Networks, which is part of the Tata Group, from among all the suitors, it was in line with the original nationalistic brand India philosophy that you all chose Tejas Networks in preference for this?
Yeah, certainly. I think that was definitely there. Another aspect is also, when we are working through this telecom business, when we are supplying equipment for infrastructure, one of the things that that our customers would look for is some sort of long-term stability in the company, because they're betting their core equipment on that company. So they'll also they would also be a bit probably hesitant to take it from a smaller company. So a bigger platform like this definitely is helpful for us to give that vision of seeing our products in deployment in all the telcos and other products which we have. So that also was one angle.
But you and your team continue to be the driving force behind this newly formed structure, I suppose.
Yes, certainly we will continue, and we clearly see it as a sort of a continuity with our vision, and achieve that Indian product. So the Atmanirbharta and all of these things which are currently influencing our policies, etc. So those also are conducive.
That's nice. Yeah. So sometimes hindsight always gives us the wisdom that is not that present when you're in the hot seat. So looking back on your journey, is there anything that you either regret or you wish you had handled differently at some point of time? Any such phase or anything like that?
Yeah, actually, one of the things you had asked earlier, probably I didn't address that, was did you feel a regret anytime in starting this? I think that was never the case. I think I was really fortunate to get the kind of co-founders and rest of the team, where all of us, in the worst of cases, we had the stomach to sort of take it in good humor, even though at the worst of times, right? We were experts. We would say, joking, we became experts at seeing silver lining in every cloud, right? So however dark it was, and in terms of doing things differently, I think one thing would be maybe sort of the realization. We were successful in raising funds, right? So somewhere maybe if we had sort of realized sooner than we did that to build a longer term business, you need take yourself off this dependence on investment and generate your own cash flows. So doing that at the earliest would have helped. Of course, the nature of business that we are in, semiconductors and hardware, it does take investment. There's nothing which you can just start selling within, say, 6 months or something. It takes 1 to 2 years for a hardware product, and maybe close to 3 years to start selling a chip, a semiconductor chip. So but once you have that, then quickly turning it into revenue, those things would have helped. So that's something I wish we had done it differently.
Okay. So, when you were sharing this, it just, I was wondering, doing something like this, a startup, lot of long working hours, so much of uncertainty, and, so many things to attend to, the technical part, the administrative part, the funding part. It requires a lot of mental and physical energy. So have you been doing anything specifically to maintain your physical well-being and mental well-being? Have you been doing anything which has helped you handle all these things successfully?
Yeah, I think, in a tech business, maybe it may sound a little uncommon, but basically somewhere, in the times where we were going through some of our low times, etc., it did help me to get into Vayaktik sadhana and upasana. And I think somewhere our mutt and our Puja Swamiji has given me that sort of a inspiration, I would say, and to continue on this aspect, because I think finally, like as Swami said, finally when you are doing some things, you think you are doing your best efforts. People should be happy about what you're doing. As a as a founder, you have to ensure, for example, that every month there's a paycheck that goes, and you can't miss that. And in all of these, you outdo yourself. But somewhere, sometimes people may say this could have been done better, right? There's always be that advice which will come, criticism or whatever. So unless you have something beyond what our work, of course, there is always the people, right? Your team is there to depend on, but also as a person, as an individual, if you have something where you are pursuing your sadhana, I think that helps. That has helped me, and I think that is something which we don't often talk about. These aspects. I think in our community we are particularly privileged. I mean, I think a lot of us realize it, that we have such a inspiring persona in Swamiji, and our tradition of mutt, the Guru Parampara, that plays such a important role. I think very few communities have this sort of a consciousness of our dharma and being introduced into this upasana. So I think that's very valuable for us. Looking around, if you look at others, maybe people have to go to they may not have their own community parampara. They have to look for gurus outside, and in that sense, even activities of the mutt, like whether it's Gayatri Anushthan or Bhagavad Gita, lectures on that. These are all things which we are very fortunate. So I think definitely that helps.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, we are a very fortunate community. We are so blessed by Guru Parampara and Swamiji. It makes a lot of difference. And like you shared, a personal sadhana definitely equips one to handle everything with more equanimity and therefore handle it in a better manner. Thanks for sharing that. That would be very useful advice, especially to the youngsters, whether they are doing their jobs or whether they take the plunge into entrepreneurship. This is certainly very useful. So other than that, what advice would you give to our youngsters? Anything that you would like to suggest or share?
I think, well, first thing is, basically when we talk about, pursuing careers or planning for it, I think one thing which I like, whatever Prime Minister Modi ji said, is that you should think about what you want to do, not what you want to become. I think that it's a simple statement, but it tells, it has immense amount of wisdom behind it. Often, you talk about, okay, I want to become an engineer, I want to become a doctor or actor or, various professions. But I think when we're at that stage, it will help us to understand what we like to do. So I think that is one of the things which probably youngsters who are looking to choose a career, first of all, you should enjoy what you're doing. Enjoy, obviously it has to be, of course, enjoying, there is some Japanese term, I think, it's the intersection of what you want to do, what you're good at, and what, is useful to the society. So the intersection of those, one must find, right? And it's not always easy to come across it. Some of us find it early, some find it a little later, but I think that we should always gravitate towards that. I would say entrepreneurship is not sort of a general panacea for everyone. It is, if you have the right set of circumstances, skills, ideas, and abilities to put it into action, then entrepreneurship is a good choice. But then, everyone cannot start their company. There have to be other sort of people who need to kind of also, join these companies and enable them, right? So if everyone is an entrepreneur, there's nobody to execute on the vision of the entrepreneur. So I think, just like good leaders, I think we also need great followers. And there is nothing sort of less in saying, because everyone brings their own. It's like, for example, to make a company like ours, we need subject matter experts who are the best in the class. I mean, so they're smarter than the founders. You need people like that, right? So they should know their technology, how to be the best in the world in that. And to come to what, to say to youngsters, I think, do things which you like, which you enjoy, and of course, which hopefully, are useful to the society, and you'll get paid well for it. If you are looking at entrepreneurship, first is, I would say, find good company of people, because that is the first thing, I think, ingredient. Then comes ideas, they can change, but the people that you are with, they are really your main capital. So I think that is something which ideas can evolve. Today you can have one business idea, someone will say, suggest, can you change it? You are, as long as your team sees the common goal, a good chemistry in the team is really important. And I think after that, it's a business finally. So being hard-nosed about cash flows, turning profitable as early as possible. Those are all things which are important. And I think take it, like my co-founder says, take it as a sort of all of these things as, especially as an entrepreneur, take it as a bit of a leela that is playing out, right? It's not something that everything is deterministic and, you can put it in an Excel sheet and, predict where it will go. A lot of things are not in our control. Some amount of luck is required, but to cash in on the luck, you need to be prepared. So I think all of the hard work that sometimes seem to not result in anything is actually preparing you to receive that luck, which you need it. I mean, business doesn't happen just by a deterministic way. So definitely that is the persistence and hard work is definitely one of the things. I think maybe cliched, but that's for a reason. So I think those are the things which I would emphasize.
Thank you, Hemant. Those are really profound insights and very valuable insights, and that shows it's basically distilled wisdom of your experience. That shows you have a thinking mind and you have analyzed everything. Really very good advice to everyone, not just to youngsters. and especially that bit about treating it everything as Leela, and yeah, it is true. There are many things you have no control over, but you should be willing to enjoy the ride, like they say, enjoy each day as it comes. Thank you for that. Would you like to share some photographs which maybe even our audience might find interesting? Maybe to Mulaqat.
I'll just try to share the screen, and I hope the right thing shows up. So these are just some of the photographs. You're able to see the screen, right?
Yeah, we can. Yes.
So, this is one of our boards just to show what goes on. These are all the chipsets in case someone has not seen the inside of a box, consumer product box. So these are some of the chips that go in into the electronic. This is called a printed circuit board, on which they are soldered. You have different connectors to sort of, be connected to the external world. This is a tactical radio that we built in partnership with a company called Cyient. This is for the Indian Army. It's a manpack. This is how our testing of our chips on the board happens. There is some pretty expensive test equipment, and then we have ways of testing the boards. And this is really the joy part, where this is actually a photograph of, where we were actually going to many field locations to, test our product for rural broadband. And this one we had sort of gone to a nearby location in Bangalore. So this is an antenna, and then there's a product which is sort of under test here, which is kind of sitting here. So we do all kinds of these field tests, which was a lot of fun. And this was in Varanasi, where we sort of installed this as our first public trial in a school in Varanasi. And so I was fortunate that because of my work, I could actually visit Kashi Vishwanath and Kal Bhairav temple there. So, and this is one of the schools in Srikakulam in Andhra Pradesh, where this students are actually interacting with someone else on the other side of the line with our rural internet connectivity. So this is just a way to show that our chip, which are all the products we developed. There's a mobile wireless, fixed wireless. This is the rural broadband solution. This is for receiving broadcast content on phones and laptops. And these are some of the strategic applications that we built in partnership with ISRO. They operate with ISRO satellites for the Indian market. And this is probably not a very good quality, but it is very memorable. This is our first sort of ideation visit to Manipal, where our first investor, Dr. Mohan Shetty, our initially co-founder Muthu, that's me, and this is Parag, our CEO, current CEO, and this is Vishwa, who is the CEO. So it was the early days where we were just thinking about it. This was our team with this. You can see at the background. We operated from a house, and this was our first award. We were really proud of this. This was our initial team's photograph. And this is, of course, more recent, where we have many more people. This is the founding team. This was me with the award. This is on a sort of a offsite meeting where we were playing cricket. And this was a particularly significant one, where our Prithvi 3 chip was launched in India. And we had the good fortune that it was graced by the Minister of Communication at that time, Mr. Manoj Sinha, Mr. Amitabh Kant, CEO of Niti Aayog, and other dignitaries. And so it was a significant moment for us. I thought I'll also share on the personal side, my parents who have been my inspiration. My wife, who has always been a support for me, and my daughter. She was here as a baby, and now she's grown up here. This is at our Karla Mutt recently, and some of these are my memories, I would say. Yeah, that's all I had.
Okay, that has been one very interesting Mulaqat, very interesting interview. So thanks for sharing so much in such a brief time, Hemant. I think we'll now move on to the question and answers. I'll check whether I've received anything on my phone. But meanwhile, I would request my co-panelists to go ahead and ask their questions.
Rajiv ma'am, I had a question for Hemant. If you allow me, I could go on and ask him.
Yeah. I've requested you to do that, in fact.
Yeah. Hemant, when you said that you also got the award towards rural, products which were more targeted towards rural India. What exactly did you mean by that? I mean, was there anything specific that we are not aware of?
Actually, well, it was not a great business success story. It was a product that we built for rural internet connectivity. See, what happens is usually for rural, say anything, solutions that are developed for urban areas are sort of redeployed, and basically it is assumed that they will, they will be good enough, they will be the right thing. But in case of internet, what happens is in rural areas, and this is not just true for India, it's even true in US, UK, all other developed countries as well, is that the population is sparse, and it is dispersed in geography, distance wise. So for that, actually, we had built using our chipset, we had built a solution for rural broadband, and that was we invested fairly, I think, we invested about 5 to 6 years of our energy into that. But yeah, so that was where we basically tried hard. We went through a lot of field trials all over the world, Scotland, Korea, US, Africa, all over the world, in India, of course. So these were products this was basically a technology that, in fact, I had the opportunity to give a TEDx talk on this. And basically it is a long range communication technology. So you don't need very tall towers to mount it. So you can just put it on your rooftop, like in the 80s, we used to have this Doordarshan antenna. So it's something like that you can put up and connect a village and a Gram Panchayat, which has a fiber behind it. So that was the product.
So Hemant, I would like to ask you a question about the semiconductor dream of India. You would be aware, since you are in the semiconductor field, that India has been wanting to start this. It's been trying, making efforts, like it's brought its semiconductor policy some 10, 12 years ago. And they have been at once, I think, if I'm not mistaken, they announced a semiconductor project in Hyderabad, which didn't take off. They had to finally allow solar panel manufacturers into that project. And it's been revived now recently. And there is talk about some serious investors and interested parties who want to bid now. So you must be following something about that. Could you share some details about where it stands now, and what kind of part would you be able to play a role in that in this development?
So good question. Actually, this is very pertinent to the Indian semiconductor industry. Basically, thanks to this supply chain crisis in semiconductors, the government has realized that you cannot limit yourself to announcing policies. Because what happens is policy has a certain intent, but it needs to be seen through into terms of execution. I think that is what I see there is a change, right? I mean, there was an event recently, just about, I think, a month back in Bangalore called Semicon India. And it was very encouraging to see the kind of engagement the government has. It's not just like passive, it is active. Of course, it is not easy for anything to move in India, even though the intention is there for things to take into actual execution, it takes time. Sometimes, many times the intended results don't happen. So, but then now what we are seeing is there is a plan announced for a semiconductor fab in Mysore. There are some unannounced locations. They're still looking for a display fab venture. And these are, semiconductor fab is like costs upwards of, $5 billion, right? And it's definitely not a decision that is easy to sort of just make it happen. Private entities have profit motive as the primary driver, not strategic countries strategic interest. So somewhere these things have to gel together. I think that's happening, but then only time will tell. I think the policies have been announced in the right manner. The other part is, apart from manufacturing, there is design. See, the key IP in a chip is really the fabless companies, as they are called. Fabless, as in they don't have the fab, they do only design. So fabless companies like we develop the chips, we design the chips, but get manufactured in a foundry, wafer foundry. So those companies are also essential, because they really hold the key to your IP. Like for example, today, a large part of the world's semiconductors are manufactured in Taiwan, and that is where there is concerns that it is under Chinese, hostile intentions. So that's why it's compromised. Now, to overcome that, the US has invested significantly. Europe is doing that. Japan has again, and India has also announced a $10 billion plan. So we have to see how that actually takes shape. Until it happens, it's not real. So, but signs are good. It's looking very positive. That much I can say.
Thank you.
So I'll first start with the compliment. Pramod Mavankurimam. Hemant is a model for co-founding startups. His awareness and demonstration that India can do as well is a note for all potentials. Hemant, wish you all unprecedented success.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Then there is a question by Akshat Kunje. What is the career scope, growth, and the terms of manufacturing industry in India?
So I look at it as two parts. One is the electronics manufacturing, where basically it involves taking chips, importing or usually importing chips, and manufacturing PCBs, bare boards onto which these chips get soldered. So that manufacturing is called electronics manufacturing. It is mostly done as a service. So it's like a outsourced manufacturing. So we as a systems company, we outsource the manufacturing of our PCBs, assembled PCBs, to EMS companies. I think there is very good scope. In fact, that is an overlooked area, I feel, in India, where China took a big leap ahead. They just scaled so magnificently. I think they really deserve all their success. I think India has to step up, and there's a big opportunity. In fact, this is a sort of, I don't know, at this stage it's an idea only for me, but I hope that sometime in future I will be able to do my bit in growing this ecosystem in India, because there is so much need for employment, and electronic manufacturing as a service is an amazing opportunity for the Indian youth. High value service. The industry itself is nascent in India, but if lives up to the promise and the opportunity we are able to capitalize, you will see a lot of this happening in India. So I would say that electronic manufacturing is a great path, right? The other part is semiconductor manufacturing. Semiconductor manufacturing is highly specialized. It requires fair amount of sort of training, and it's highly specialized. And it's not, I would say, it's not scalable in that sense. I mean, you will not have millions of jobs in foundries, wafer foundries. So semiconductor fabs are highly automated. They are basically chemical plants in reality. So it needs a lot of qualifications in either, process control, which is more of electronics, and then chemical engineering. Those are all things which are highly specialized. But with the fabs coming in, that may be a good option.
Yeah, okay. There are a couple of interesting questions from Hema and Ashok Hattangdi, the founders of Conserve. We had a very interesting and educative Mulaqat earlier with them. So I'll read out the first one. Congrats, wonderful journey. The ecosystem for peripherals and IOs is limited in India, especially for RF. Was this a problem and how did you deal with it?
So, yeah, RF is radio frequency, those who don't know the term. So RF, basically, I would say skill set, right? If we talk about design skill set, RF design skill set, it had to be nurtured. So we also took our time developing these expertise. It's not easy. We tried partnering with companies, then realized that we have to have it in-house. And we do build the RF boards now. In fact, high power RF as well as low power RF. We do build them. It is an entry barrier, and hiring them and getting it right definitely was a challenge which we have successfully tackled the last 5 years.
So that leads, very relevantly to the next question from the Hattangdis. Engineering students in India largely learn by rote. How did you get yours to think out of the box and do amazing engineering?
That's a tough one. Okay, so yeah, I mean, basically, it's really product development as Mr. Hattangdi it's not a sort of scalable industry. You have to pick and choose the people who are qualified for it, who have the appetite and aptitude, learning things. So definitely you need to have a strong technology, in the management itself, right? The management has to make sure that what experience they have gathered, that kind of gets that goes into training the people who are joining. It's not easy to find. It's not, but then over the years, if you find a few people who are really good, then they pick up those things, and in fact, they become better than the seniors. So I think definitely it is something which you are right. Our education system, in fact, one of the problems with our system is that it teaches us to answer questions framed by someone else, right? But it doesn't teach us to ask questions which nobody has thought of. So that is one of the things. And when you are doing a product development, it is not, a textbook kind of implementation. You can't really read up and implement. You have to learn things on the job. You have to apply learn from your mistakes and apply corrections and learn over the years. So thinking out of the box, if you have the right set of people in the top, and that is something which I can say we have plenty at Saankhya. We ourselves get to this day, we get involved in all of the nitty-gritties of at least some of the interesting problems, the challenging problems, the innovation, part of it. We as management still get involved. But then, yeah, you need to build over time a very capable team. I think we have been fortunate in being able to build that.
You're so right. Being able to ask the right questions is so important and a very skilled art. Yeah. The next one is from Krishna Chandavarmam. With the government planning to give a big push to semiconductor chips manufacturing in India, would Saankhya Labs be one of the beneficiaries?
Yes, we hope to be. So there is, as a fabless design house, fabless chip company, we are happy that for the first time the government has introduced design linked incentive. So earlier there was a production linked incentive, PLI, which was there previously. A lot of multinationals came in, benefited from it because it was manufacturing. We are not manufacturing oriented. So what we do is outsource manufacturing, whether it's the chip or the system. So we definitely see both PLI and DLI, design linked incentive for semiconductors, as key enablers. So once they are put into practice, we will definitely benefit.
Okay, that's good to hear that. The next one is from Pradeep Nagarkati Mam. Was there any role of bank loans or difficulty in their participation in your venture?
See, actually, for banks, generally, actually, I would say not just banks, but generally in the finance world, there is no accepted methodology to value your intellectual property. So if someone, a valuer, comes into your office, he sees that there are cubicles, just like, it could have equally well been a call center, right? All those cubicles look the same, and people have laptops, and if you don't go into the lab, okay, in the lab there are some boards lying around and there's a test equipment, but the real asset of a design company like ours is the intellectual property that we create, and there is no cognizance of this in the valuers' books. So basically, unless you have already a very steady stream of revenues, which is, in case of startups, there's a long gestation period. So you don't get much of a chance to do something with the bank. So it is virtually impossible to get loan for IP, or with IP as a collateral for it.
Right. Just a minute. Huh? Yeah. The next one is from Jairam Kambatkund Mam, our ex-chairman of Canara Saraswat Association. He says, Hemant, at the outset, hearty congratulations to you for what you have achieved. I thought I was connected with you, and knowing you as Jasmina's, who is known to me as a child, husband, but today I came to know that you were connected with Durgesh Nagarkati as well, who was my senior by 4 to 5 years in Crompton Greaves. My question to you is as follows. With whatever work has been done by you and your company Saankhya, what can be considered as consumption of semiconductors in India and the world? I think he basically wanting to know what maybe the volume of consumption or the spectrum of consumption.
Yeah. See, right now we have in terms of scaling as a semiconductor company, we have shipped our chips mostly outside India. In India, there hasn't been that much consumption because India doesn't have so many OEMs, original equipment manufacturers in electronics. So most of our business in semiconductor products has been outside India, largely in US. But if you look at the SATCOM side of it, we have been, since our products worked with ISRO satellites, the GSAT-6, we have been mostly India-centric. And so it has been segment-wise, it's been different. In terms of 5G, we expect both domestic as well as global. 5G telecom that we're building the products, but it's still under development. We have this new technology which which we call 5G broadcast. Actually, it's more broadcast centric. So those things again, we are starting with India, and then there is some efforts in US. There are some business oriented, policy oriented things which need to be kind of in place for us to scale that within India. So if these things take off, we expect that the consumption will be largely in India, but also outside, like Europe and US. That's our hope.
Okay. It's heartening to know that you'll have products for 5G, which is now all set to, make an entry into India. Good to hear that. There's one more question from Pramod Mavinkuru Imam. India has the talent for design and development, yet why is there hesitancy from big industries like the Birlas and Reliance Industries to invest in semiconductor technology?
Yeah, it is. I think India missed somewhere the bus on the hardware story. I think this probably to some extent our policy frameworks, our customs policies, our duties, some of these things did discourage hardware industry. And big companies, if you look at it, in fact, I think it's a very pertinent question. Big companies, big name companies, definitely they need to see the value. I think now with this, I think all crises are probably blessings in disguise, right? I mean, this shortage of semiconductors has suddenly woken up everyone that this is something where there's an opportunity. I think unless that opportunity is seen, it will not happen. Now, with Tatas have certainly seen the value in this. And I think others are also on the lookout. I think not just semiconductor design, but semiconductor manufacturing also, it's likely that big companies will see the value, invest a lot of money because that's needed. I think in India's own interest, if you see, we are today importing more electronics than crude oil, right, in dollar terms. And unlike oil, you can indigenize the electronics. So there's an opportunity, but yeah, it needs certain amount of gumption. I think bigger companies definitely need to show that.
Thanks, Hemant. I don't see any more questions here.
Thank you.
So before I hand it over to Gopi Ma'am for the formal vote of thanks, I want to express my own heartfelt thanks to you. Like every Mulaqat preceding this has been both very interesting and educative. A lot of industry-specific knowledge and also a lot of insights which are valid for anything that you do in life. Thanks for all that, Hemant.
Thank you. Thanks for giving me this opportunity.
So may I request Gopi Ma'am to deliver the official vote of thanks on behalf of all of us.
Thank you, Rajiv Ma'am. Thank you. Thank you for conducting this session. And it was really a very interesting Mulaqat. We all learned how what challenges an entrepreneur has to go through and what kind of perseverance and what kind of dedicated efforts go into building manufacturing or a design industry. I think we are all now wiser by and definitely learned a lot from today's interaction. Thank you, Rajiv Ma'am, for conducting this question and answer also. And I would like to thank Rajesh Hataldi ma'am also for introducing the speaker at the very outset of the program. I would like to thank all the KSA committee members for continuously supporting the CSN activities. And I would also like to thank especially Hemant Mallapur ma'am for taking out time and sharing all his views. And I think a lot of things go into entrepreneurship, and at his very early stage itself. And I really appreciate that he has a heart for India. He wants India to be on the map, on the world global business map. And that has been achieved through a lot of dominating scenario in especially in semiconductor design, which India already had, but he has been part of it. And we all are proud that you are have taken part of a lead into that, making India a leader in semiconductor design. And I would like to also thank the entire support team, especially Rahul Jain and Swati, and for regularly being a support to us. And also like to thank those who have asked questions. Their questions have made us get more out of Hemant Mallapur. And also the audience, who have joined in today. We have been popularizing our mulaqats and sessions of CSN, and more and more people are joining in and listening into the questions. I would like to thank the audience for taking the time out and attending today's session. Thank you all.
So thank you, Gopi ma'am. That brings us to the end of a very interesting evening. हावत सभा समाप्ति प्रार्थना करता. सभा समाप्ति प्रार्थना. नंदन्तु साधका सर्वे विनश्यन्तु विदूषका. अवस्था शाम्भवी मेस्तु प्रसन्नोस्तु गुरु सदा. सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः. सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः. सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु. मा कश्चित् दुःखमाप्नुयात्. ओम शांति शांति शांति. So thanks everyone.